If you've been looking for a new job or thinking about looking for a new job or changing specialties, you've probably heard people talking about networking. I know most guests that I interview really recommend networking as a way to find the career that you actually want. But some people don't really understand how you network. It's uncomfortable for a lot of people, and sometimes it can just be difficult to start those conversations, and all of those things may keep you from networking. So, in the interview today, I'm talking with a PA who used networking extensively to get the non clinical role she's working in, but also has people reaching out to her wanting to network with her. So, she's going to share with us some of the best practices, some of the things to avoid, and ways to make networking just a little bit easier. Hi, it's Michelle with the Medicine Couch. Thanks for joining me today. As always, I would ask for your support. Hit that subscribe button down below, share the video, and help spread the word about the channel. Okay, now let's dive in and talk about effective networking.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. My name is Kirsten Gertowski. I've been a PA in Michigan for about 9 years or so now, I guess almost going on 10. In the last few years, I have made the decision to go outside of clinical practice, and I now work in a non-clinical role.
So, talk a little bit about why networking is important and how it's helped you in your career.
Networking can help with your career growth on the path that you may already be on. It can open up the door to completely new opportunities. Maybe some of those are non-clinical. Maybe it's in another specialty that you're interested in. I think when it comes to networking, it's very underutilized in clinical practice, unfortunately. If you network within the specialty you're in, maybe you find a PA or somebody within that specialty that can help to share best practices, or you guys can share information, and it can really even help in your day-to-day clinical practice.
Where do you think are some of the best places to network in person, like one-on-one?
I do think, of course, PA state organizations are a great place. I live in Michigan. Michigan Academy of Physician Assistants does a really great job of doing regular get-togethers and networking events. Another place that I think is an interesting way to network is alumni organizations. So whether that's your undergrad, college you went to, maybe where you went to PA school, a lot of times your undergrad institution does hold alumni events in each state. That can be a great way to network, even if it's not within medicine. You find once you start networking, this person knows this person, and that can be very helpful. And another one in person, I would say, is conferences. Those are wonderful. It is just not the same virtually. Every time I go to a conference, whether it's in my specialty, whether it's PA focused, I always meet people and have great luck networking.
Now, in today's world, of course, so many things are done, online and done
Yes.
virtually. What are some of the platforms on social media or online that you think are the best places for people to do networking?
So my personal favorite, honestly, is LinkedIn. That is how I got down the career path I'm in now. Like I said, left clinical practice. So networking through LinkedIn has helped me a ton. One of the best benefits is that you can network on your own time from your own home. You're not having to worry about certain events and dates and going places after business hours. So highly recommend that. And I know a lot of PAs either have a LinkedIn page that it's there, but they don't really use it, or they just don't even have a page in general.
Yeah. Yeah, I have to say, before I started this YouTube channel, I'd look at LinkedIn. I had a profile
Mhm.
up there, but I didn't really do anything with it. And I was like, I don't even know how to really interact, with stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like any other social media. Once you start using it, it becomes more familiar, and then you understand, and you have the capability to meet more people. But
Yeah.
we're going to talk a little bit more in this talk about how to do that effectively. But beyond LinkedIn, is there any other platforms that you're aware of or that you would suggest?
So for me, honestly, LinkedIn was the best bet. I did move into a career as a medical science liaison. So I did join the MSL Society, and they have a web page, they have forums there. I do know there's some PA specialties out there, like there's some cardiology PA specialty groups, and I'm sure every specialty has them, where again, they have web pages where you can interact with other people, forums. I personally, it didn't get me to where I am today, but somebody else may have good luck with that.
LinkedIn, what's great about it is it is specifically made for business. It takes a little bit of that angst away. Like, do these people want me to reach out to them? Do I, is it too forward for me to talk to them? Because most people are there to,
Exactly.
talk about business. But I don't want to discount other groups because, like, I've recently I'm not a mom, but I've recently been part of the PA Moms Facebook group, and
Yeah, yeah,
it really is an amazing group. And there are so many things that people share on there and learn from each other. They even get CME on that group. So I
yeah.
think that if you can find a group that is, that has that kind of engagement and that is in your specialty or in something you want to do, I do think that Facebook groups and forums can be a good tool to use as well.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Now that you say that, I am a part of the PA Moms Facebook group. I have people reaching out to me all the time through Facebook Messenger asking, like, how did you become an MSL? Can you help with that? There's PAs in clinical practice groups. So I agree.
The rest of the talk about effective networking, we're probably going to focus more on like LinkedIn. That, as we said, that is the business platform, and that is where it is already established for you to reach out and to do networking.
Yeah,
So let's talk about some of the best practices on LinkedIn. First of all, how do you even find people that
yeah.
you want to interact with on LinkedIn?
So that's a great question. And this is something I struggled with when I started because I was one of those PAs that had a blank page and didn't use it for anything. So I guess my first bit of advice is what is your goal? I mean, you have to know, are you looking for a new career? Do you know what the career is? Are you looking for somebody within that area? Are you looking for a new specialty? Are you just trying to connect with other PAs or medical professionals? So you really have to know what your goal is. I'll use the example of medical science liaison just because that's where I work now. So my first step was I actually started by searching for PAs who became MSLs. So in the search box, I put, PA and MSL, figuring that those that were PAs would probably be more apt to talk to me. If you just type in medical science liaison, you're going to get thousands of people coming up, and that can be very difficult to know who to reach out to.
So, there's a search box at the top. So you don't have to use any kind of at symbol or anything like that. You just type in the word that you're looking for.
Yeah, I would just type in, physician assistant and MSL in there in the search box next to each other. And not every result is perfect, but it would find those keywords where somebody had both of those on their profile. And I was able to find many PAs who made the transition into this career.
So you don't have to separate it necessarily by commas or anything. You could just type, and you could even try variations. Like you could do
Yes, yes,
PA, MSL, physician assistant,
yes.
MSL, PA, medical science liaison, because it's really searching how people have it written on their profile, right?
Exactly. So I highly recommend looking for specific or trying different combinations, exactly like you said. Yes. So another thing I would recommend too is so again, using MSL as an example, just because I'm most familiar, say that you know that you want to become an MSL and you're a respiratory PA. Well, it's really easy to figure out what companies have respiratory drugs or work in that respiratory therapeutic area. It's a quick Google search. You probably are already aware of what drugs you use in your clinic, and you can easily look up who makes them. Search for the company. When the company page comes up, if you scroll down, it will give you people that you have things in common with. So it will say X number of PAs work for this company. This number of people live in Metro Detroit, for example, for me. This many people graduated from the same undergrad program you did. And that's a really nice tool too to start interacting with people within a company and find people that you have things in common with.
Now that you've done that and you've identified some people that are either in your area or do the kind of thing that exactly that you're looking for, what is the best way to contact them? How does that happen on LinkedIn?
So with LinkedIn, I do recommend when you hit the connect button, that's how you would go ahead and connect with them. It only allows you a certain number of characters, and I think it's less than 100. So that's not the place to put your whole life story. You have to have a very brief message. I always recommend putting some kind of a brief message in rather than blindly connecting with people. So I like to just say, hi, my name is Kirsten. I am also a PA. I saw that you work as a medical science liaison. I would love to connect. Or I saw that you also work in cardiology, would love to connect with you. Something really short, but it's like, why am I connecting with you? What do we have in common? That really helps to get them to accept that connection.
A lot of people may ignore just a blank connection, or they may think, I don't really,
Yeah.
this
Like, I don't
person
know
just
this
reach
person.
out to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is this rando person reaching out to me?
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. So that's a nice step to just kind of initially reach out, not what you may put in a message for more information, but you can't put that all in the initial connection. So make it short and sweet. try to at least connect with them first.
And so for people who haven't used LinkedIn much, if you do that and then the person accepts the connect, do you know that? And then do you have a chance? How do you email them? How do you message them later?
Yeah, so it will tell you if the person accepts the connection. One thing I always like to say though is keep in mind with networking, not everybody will connect with you. You can't be offended by that. Some may ignore it. Some just don't use LinkedIn. Maybe they're very happy with their job. They have a great profile, but they've left it blank for 2 years. So they don't even see the connection request, or they do months later. So do keep that in mind when it comes to LinkedIn, when you are reaching out, connecting with people. But it will tell you, yes, they accepted the connection. Once you are connected, then you can actually send them a personal message. And that one has unlimited characters. So then you can expand on that initial first connection request.
And so then once you've made that connection and you've got this established way to communicate, what do you advise people do next? I mean, how much do you tell people in that first, introduction?
Yeah. I like to keep it pretty succinct, right? Nobody is going to read your life story, so you don't want to sit there going paragraph for paragraph. Eventually, you'll have time to talk about that. One of the things I caution people about, don't reach out and ask somebody for help. Nobody owes you anything, and everybody's really busy. So you want to phrase it in a way where they get to talk about themselves. Like, do you have a few minutes for a brief conversation where I can learn how you moved from clinical practice into a medical science liaison role?
So you're not asking them, you're not reaching out and say, "Can you help me become an MSL?" You're asking them to just share any information or tips that they might have, kind of thing, or is it not even that much?
No, I would say information and tips. I mean, again, I like to phrase it in a way where they talk about themselves. Everyone likes to talk about themselves. So it's, hey, would you mind sharing what a day in the life is of an MSL? Or would you mind sharing with me how you moved from clinical practice to MSL? I'd be really interested to learn that because people will talk about themselves, but somebody may look at a request for help and be like, oh, I just don't have time. I don't even know this person. So it's a nice way to kind of get them hooked to then have a conversation with them.
And so when you say have a conversation with them, are you still messaging back and forth, or do you ever invite them to like have a Zoom meeting where you can talk more fluidly with them?
I'll leave it up to them, of course, and what works best, but usually I'll ask if they have a few minutes of their time to talk. And I will suggest, if possible, via phone or via a virtual meeting. I think it's a lot easier to do it that way. Again, if you start getting into the ins and outs of where your career path's going and what you want to do and some kind of a message, it just becomes paragraphs and it can be really hard to follow. And I just didn't find it as helpful.
Usually when you reach out and connect to people, they're probably going to go back and look at your profile first to see kind of, who you are and what you've done or whatever.
Yeah.
What kind of things do you suggest people have on their profile? What are the most important things to have on there?
There's probably three things I'd say mainly. Number one is a photo. Keep in mind it's a professional network. This isn't Facebook or anything like that. So it's not the place to have your family and dogs. You just want a clean, professional looking picture of just you on your profile. Another thing that seems really silly is some kind of contact information or way for somebody to contact you. So I have talked to so many recruiters where they have told me that they have found somebody for a job, but there's no way for them to get in contact. LinkedIn has settings where you can enable or disable messaging. So you want to make sure that your settings are open to receive messages. If not, you want to make sure in the About Me section you have your email or something on there, because otherwise you're on LinkedIn, but you can't really network if they can't contact you. The final thing I would say is remember LinkedIn is almost like your CV for everyone to see. So make sure you have every section filled out thoroughly. And they have assistants on there, like automatic assistants or kind of robots that will help you build a CV. But you want to make sure if you have courses you've taken, put them in there. There's a keywords section where you can put keywords that relate to your career and your strengths. When it comes to the actual CV, put what you actually do day to day. So don't just put hospitalist PA. What I found since leaving clinical practice is not everybody understands what a PA actually does. So put, are you involved in cross-functional collaboration with other teams? How are you collaborating with everybody else? Are you prescribing medications, diagnosing conditions, whatever it may be? It may seem silly, but actually go into detail about what you do day to day at your jobs.
And there's also something I've seen that people do, and I'm not really sure exactly where they do this, but sometimes around their profile picture, it'll say like open for work. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there's two features you can, well, actually three you can have on LinkedIn. You can have all of those off, which means people can look at your profile, but it doesn't show any interest in moving on to another career. There's open to work, which you can select on your profile and you can just go under your options and it will show you that. When you select that, you'll have a little green marker around your profile picture saying open to work. Do keep in mind though, everyone can see that. So colleagues, your boss, anyone can see that if you're connected with them on LinkedIn. There is a third option where you can be open to work for only recruiters to see. So that will not put that green banner around your profile picture, but recruiters can look at your profile and see that you are open to a new position. Your colleagues cannot.
What are some of the networking mistakes to avoid?
So I will tell you that probably twice a week, I get messages from people that are something along the lines of, hey, I'm, a PA in this specialty. I have X number of kids. I'm really burned out and tired. I've heard about MSL and I've heard it's more flexible, more money. Can you help me get a job? And that's a very typical message I get. And so the problem with that is that one, you're not showing that you've done any research on the job, that you've even Googled it, you even know what it is. You're not showing you have any passion for the job. So it's kind of all the wrong reasons for wanting to change. And again, if you have no idea what you want to do, but you want to leave clinical practice, reach out and ask people what they do day to day. There's nothing wrong with asking them what they do, how they enjoy their job, and building from there. If you know you want to go into an MSL position, then reach out and say, I've done all this research. I know it's what I want. I'd like to learn about your experience. But again, don't reach out to someone blindly and just be like, hey, can you help me? You don't know me, but why don't you put time into helping me?
Yeah, just on a side note, because I know a lot of PAs have interest in becoming an MSL. I've done two MSL interviews on my
Yeah.
channel. I'll put the card up here, linking to the other video, if you want to go kind of learn more about an MSL. But so it's a good point when you're reaching out to somebody. You want to think about how they are receiving your message. Contrast that message that you highlighted earlier with somebody coming in and say, I've been researching about MSLs. I'm really excited about the science aspect of it. I think it would be a great fit for me because I really love reading journals and things like that. Could you tell me more about your path and how you became an
Yeah,
MSL or something like that?
absolutely.
That's a whole different tone, right?
It absolutely is. Yeah, that's it. I completely agree. And that's somebody that I'm more than willing to help and talk them through the process. And I have a ton of PAs that I help move into the MSL career field when they send me messages like that. Another big one that people don't realize is that when you network and when you're building connections, this is actually the process of relationship building. It is not a one and done. So if you talk to someone one time, you end the phone call or whatever it is saying, hey, keep me in mind for jobs, and you hang up and I never hear from them again, I'm not going to remember them to keep them in mind for jobs. The whole point of building a relationship is reaching out on a regular basis, updating that person, asking questions, letting them know how it's going. You really want to make sure you put the time into that.
And so there's also something that you had told me about when we met at first about the term internal referrals. So
Yeah.
what is an I can't even say it. What is an internal referral and how do they work and why are they important?
Yeah. So again, this is where networking comes from and why this comes in handy. So I think that even in clinical practice, certain hospitals have this, definitely in device and an industry like pharma, there are internal links for applying to jobs, meaning that, externally you can see a job that you like on LinkedIn and you can apply. But if you know someone within that company that's willing to vouch for you, they will have a special internal link that they can send you to apply to that job. It means that they are putting their name behind you, and then your information will get to the hiring manager. It's much less likely to get weeded out by the HR system and just not go anywhere. But again, someone needs to know you and be able to vouch for you. So you can't expect to have one conversation with somebody and then they're willing to put their name behind you for a job. One thing I do recommend doing when it comes to those internal referrals, you want to make sure that you keep track of who you're talking to and make some notes on these people. So I had an Excel sheet and I would have the person's name, the company they worked for, and make notes on them. Then I knew if something came up with a certain company and I was interested, I'd go back to that sheet and say, oh, I know these three people there. I'm going to reach out. I wonder if one of them would be willing to do an internal referral. Keep in mind that person that does the referral, if you get hired, they typically get a nice little bonus too.
So it can be a win-win. So don't, that's another way I guess that people should think about that they shouldn't be scared or not reach out to people because they don't want to be a bother to people.
Networking, you have to take risks. Like I said, people are going to ignore you, people are going to say no. That's pretty much the worst that's going to happen. So take the risk. There's nothing wrong with asking. And exactly like you said, networking comes back into play. I've had MSLs that helped me that now have come back to me because their company has, restructured and they need a job. And it definitely ends up going both ways. Once you start networking, you realize it's a very small world out there.
And like you said earlier, if you do end up getting that position, make sure that you are still trying to keep in touch with that person and keep that relationship going. Because, like you said, you never know in the
Yeah.
future what might become of it. There's a great book about networking, and I was going to mention it, but I'm just racking my brain. I listened to it. It's about being a super connector or something. I can't
Oh,
remember.
okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but um, I can't think of it, so I guess it doesn't matter.
No, I have. I honestly, I learned all of this through a lot of trial and error. And when I was networking, I probably talked to like 150 different MSLs, just off of LinkedIn. So it was all just kind of my own learning.
That's a good lesson, what you just said there. I think a lot of people might reach out to like four or five people and be like,
Yeah.
oh well, this isn't meant to be. This isn't going to happen. The more numbers, the more people you reach out to, the more connections you make, the more likely that you'll get the result that you want.
Yeah. Like I said, I reached out to hundreds of MSLs because I knew that was the field I wanted to go into and talked briefly with probably 150 of them. And usually that was a 20-minute or so phone conversation. And from there, you figure out like who should you remain connected to, who's willing to help, all of those other things. But yeah, it takes time. It is not just connecting with a few people and then hoping that they're going to get you into the door for a job. So on that point, too, I will also say one, it's nice to just have details about that person. So the next time you talk to them, you can say, oh my gosh, how's your dog doing? Last time I talked to you, you told me this, or whatever it may be. It can be really embarrassing if you've talked to them and you're starting to mix up like which state do they live in, how many kids do they have. So you really do want to keep up with those details. Also, I've had people reach out to me that I've forgotten they've talked to me, so it's nice just to keep track because it stops becoming just LinkedIn connections, and eventually one person says, oh, you should talk to my colleague, here's their number, you should talk to this person. So you really want to keep very good track.
So one thing, we talked a lot about online networking and how to approach people, but if you're at a conference or you're at some kind of mixer and maybe if you're not the most outgoing person or you're a little shy and stuff, do you have any tips about how people can kind of get conversations started or ways to approach other people?
Yeah, and I still struggle with this. I'll be completely honest with you. So I'm still learning and growing as an MSL. So in-person conferences, I agree, are trickier for me too. I always go back to what I said before of asking other people about themselves in person. It's instinct to want to go up and be like, hey, I'm an MSL, here's my card, but it can come off a little salesy. So I like to introduce myself and say, I'm a PA and I work in cardiology, I work as an MSL, but then make it about them. Ask them about their work, their interest. It can even be personal life and hobbies. And when you do that, you'll find the conversation slowly starts to open up and they'll ask you questions back and you can get through that information that you want to get through.
When I do it right and I ask people and talk to them and ask about them and I'm curious about them, there are so many surprises and things that you learn that
Yeah,
you never thought that you were going to get instead of coming at them with what you want and who you are. And it also just it takes that pressure off, like you said.
yeah,
It's not like you have to go in and sell somebody. You're just asking like, "Hey,
yeah,
what's your name? What do you do?" type thing.
exactly.
It
And
seems so simple, but it's hard to remember
exactly.
at the time.
It's hard and I still get nervous and sometimes I just spit it all out and I'm like, I'm an MSL, here's my card. But you really want to take a step back. You're at a conference. Did you guys attend a joint session together? Ask them, like, what did you think about that lipid poster? Or, what are you seeing in your patients? You have to remember, we're clinicians too. We can have those peer conversations. We have them every day with our colleagues, but it's just nerve-wracking at conferences to do it.
Sometimes they'll have little special events, like at the TAPA conference, they had like a casino night. So you're playing games, with people, and I think that that helps break the ice a little bit and helps you, meet people. So if there's an activity that you can do, I think that that is something that people might consider if they're a little
Mhm.
shyer or, not really sure about how to go about networking.
Yes, definitely.
Any last things that you want to say about networking?
First of all, I think it's important for anybody to network. Even if you are perfectly content with your career, I have learned so much from other PAs, other clinicians in medicine, even if I am not looking to move in another direction. So, absolutely start putting yourself out there. We've talked about some great places and resources for networking. So, start with those. My biggest tip, though, is don't be scared. It is going to be normal for people to not get back to you, to ignore you, to tell you no. It doesn't put you in any type of a worse position than where you are at the time. So don't be fearful. Put yourself out there, and you'll start to build that network.
Really good insight into how networking has worked for you. So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And if you want to learn more about being an MSL, I will put those interviews here. As always, thanks for joining me. Take care, stay sane, and I'll see you next time on the Medicine Couch. Bye.